The world is filled with so much uncertainty. So many things happen that have the power to shake you to your very core. Sickness, loss, disappointments, accidents, economic failure, war, health crisis, layoffs, and a host of other unfortunate events that you really have no control over. These things are happening all around you. And when you think about it, it might cause you to wonder, how can you trust God in uncertain times? How can you put your faith and belief in Him when everything around you seems to be spinning out of control? How can you trust God when you're scared because it seems like your entire world is falling apart? Well, if you've ever wrestled with these feelings, and especially if you're wrestling with them right now, I need for you to stay tuned because today I'm going to be sharing with you why you should trust God in uncertain times. Hey there, extraordinary child of God. I'm SaMonna, and this is a place where you learn to transition from where you are to where the good Lord wants you to be. So if you experience pain, heartache, or disappointment, and you're ready to push past life's challenges so that you can live a life filled with peace, joy, and fulfillment, then you, my friend, are in the right place. Now, what I want you to know today is that the feelings that you're experiencing are normal. Feeling uneasy, scared, fearful about your circumstances, or what's about to come is something that happens to the majority of us. However, I know from experience that it does not feel good. But what I also know is that God has not turned a blind eye to you or to your situation. And trusting in Him is the absolute best thing you can do to rise above and experience peace. So I want to tell you about someone who learned an important lesson about trusting God in uncertain times. But before I do, I want you to help me out by liking this video, sharing it with a friend, and subscribing to my channel. Let's just get that out of the way. Now, there was a woman who had found herself in the midst of some very uncertain times. Her husband had died, which resulted in her entire life being turned upside down. And unfortunately, on top of the excruciating pain she struggled with due to his death, she also now had to figure out how to make ends meet for herself and for her son. Her husband had been the breadwinner, the one who went out and worked each and every day to provide for their family, to make sure that they lived a comfortable life. But now he was gone and the responsibility fell all on her. So like any good mother, all this woman wanted to do was provide for her son. Yes, her circumstances had changed and it was going to be challenging, but she was up for the task. She knew that she had to do whatever she had to do to provide food and shelter for her son. So she set out to learn how to till the ground and plant food so that they could eat and possibly make money by selling some of the crops. And as challenging as her situation already was, things got worse. The region of the world where she lived suddenly experienced a horrible famine. There was no sign of rain, the earth was dry, and the little crops she had planted in her effort to provide food for her and her son had simply withered away and produced little to no fruit. Now, as time went on, things had gotten so bad that the woman had resolved in her heart that she and her son were going to die of starvation. The thought of this being the end of their story tormented her. But what could she do? Everyone around her was suffering just like she was, and those who were fortunate to have just a little bit more needed it for their families. So as she was mentally sinking into the pool of her thoughts, she began to gather a couple of sticks that she could use to start a little fire that would heat up her little oven so that she could make just one small little loaf of bread with the flour and the oil that she had left. And while she was doing this, a man cries out to her and asks her to give him a little drink of water. And this woman, who was so caught up in her own thoughts, said to herself, why not? And before she could turn to get the water, this man had the nerve to ask yet another question. And this time he asked her to make him some food. So this woman then turns around to this man and begins to share with him the thoughts that had been plaguing her mind. She says, sir, I don't have food like that. As a matter of fact, I'm getting ready to make the last meal that I will ever make for my son and for myself, because it's highly likely that we are both going to die of starvation after I make this small little meal. So I can't help you. But what this woman didn't realize was that God had been watching over her and her son all of this time. And at this very moment, he was about to do something amazing for her. But he needed to know that she would trust him, even in the midst of all this uncertainty. So God instructs this man to tell this poor woman not to fear, but to go and make him some bread first. And then afterwards, make something for her and for her son. And if she does this, her flour and oil will never run out. They won't run out until the day God sends rain to end the famine. Now, when this woman heard this man's proposition, she had to make a decision. Would she trust what she could see or what she couldn't see? Would she fall prey to uncertainty or take a leap of faith and trust God in the midst of uncertainty? And as she contemplated what decision she would make, she felt God tugging at her heart, pleading with her to trust him. And so that's what she did. And the Bible tells us in 1 Kings chapter 17, so she went away and did according to the word of Elijah. And she and he and her household ate for many days. The bin of flour was not used up, nor did the jar of oil run dry, according to the word of the Lord, which he spoke by Elijah. Needless to say, this woman learned the importance of trusting God in uncertain times. Now, if you want to find out more about this story, you can read all about it in 1 Kings chapter 17. But it goes without saying that this woman learned the importance of trusting God in uncertain times, and she experienced the benefits of trusting God no matter what your circumstances may be. Now, this is the same experience God wants you to have. Even though your circumstances may be significantly different, God still needs you to trust him in the same way. He needs you to step out in faith and believe that he is greater than your circumstances, greater than your problems, and that he has thousands of ways to bless you in the midst of your circumstances. Now, what you have to remember is that the enemy wants you to be so caught up in the sea of uncertainty that you can't grab a hold of God in faith. And grabbing a hold of God in faith during these times is critical. And it's critical because when you put your trust in God, you are accepting his peace and his comfort in the midst of your storm. Now, I'm not telling you something that I've heard or that I simply read. I'm telling you what I know from my own experience. Trusting God in the midst of your storm is a game changer. And what God did for me was nothing short of amazing, which is why I want you to grab a copy of my book, Trusting When It Doesn't Make Sense, where I share my journey to learning to trust God in the midst of my greatest tragedy. It's a story of trial and triumph, and I truly believe it will encourage your soul. I'll leave a link for it here and in the description below. So if you're looking for peace, if you're looking for clarity, if you're looking for someone to carry you through your season of uncertainty because you just can't carry yourself, then I need for you to trust God no matter what your day might bring. So here's what I need you to do. I need you to let me know what uncertainty you're struggling with, so we as a community can pray for you. And I also want you to let me know how your experience has been with trusting God. Leave it in the comment section below. Also, like I said before, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you next week, Thursday. Yes, we're back on track. I'll see you next Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And please don't forget that you are extraordinary through Christ. God bless.